Hey guys, Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer. We talk about music, books, and movies. And today we are doing part 6 in the Album of the Day challenge. So, this is me and 6 of my imaginary friends, all of whom happen to be dragons, attempt at the Pokemon genre challenge from Rate Your Music. Basically, we just generate a random Pokemon, then generate a random number, and it gives us a genre. Link to the genre table with all the Pokemon types and genres linked in the description, as usual. Anyway, today's genre is blues. Today's album is Hard Working Man Blues by Memphis Willie B. And today's Pokemon is Archeops, which is our first dual type Pokemon. It's actually both a rock and a flying type. So I had to put a 20 into the random number generator instead of a 10. Anyway, before we get started with the voice acting and throw it over to my imaginary friends and whatnot, I'm gonna give my thoughts on this album. It's got a cool atmosphere that makes me think of a bunch of black guys sitting on a dusty wooden porch smoking cigars in a small southern town. But that's kind of to be expected with country blues. In fact, this is basically just Robert Johnson, except less experimental and with slightly better production. It's got a cool sound, but as someone who's heard Memphis Willie B's other studio album, this is definitely not his best work. It just kind of feels like a typical blues album, while his first album sounded downright haunting. It also contains the song Good Potatoes, which makes me cringe so hard. I appreciate the shots taken at the Vietnam War on Uncle Sam Blues, though, and I like the harmonica on L&N Blues. It's not bad, but it's definitely my least favorite of the only 2 Memphis Willie B projects that exist. With that out of the way, let's get started with the voice acting, shall we? Hi, I'm Forrest Woods, and this is Blaze Flarington, Skyler Wing, Houdini Presto, Bolt Thunderstone, and Draven Onyx. This is the 6th video in our Album of the Day series, and our genre for the day is blues. So, when I got this genre, I felt 2 things at once. One was joy because I got a genre I like, and the other was sympathy because it meant Blaze is the only one of us who got a genre he didn't like during our first week of doing this. Yeah, this challenge hates me. Sorry, dude. Anyway, my first instinct when I was picking an album for this was Robert Johnson, but he doesn't have any studio albums. Then I remembered the album introducing Memphis Willie B by lesser-known blues artist Memphis Willie B, which is basically Robert Johnson with more acoustic guitar. At first I was gonna pick that one, but then I remembered that Memphis Willie B had another album called Hard Working Man Blues that I hadn't listened to. I decided to educate myself and pick that one. So, what did I think of it? Well, it's not as good as introducing Memphis Willie B, mainly because the atmosphere and lyrical content aren't as strong, but it's still good. The guitar playing is great, the lyrical content is dark and sexual enough to make white racists clutch their pearls. That's a compliment in my book. The only song I can't stand on here is Good Potatoes, which is cheesy and annoying. Everything else, while not as solid as his first album, is still pretty good. 8 out of 10, but if any of you are gonna say you didn't like this album, I'd recommend at least giving his other album a chance. Okay, I'll give it a try, but I doubt it'll work for me. Anyway, this album is boring. The instrumentation is basic acoustic guitar strumming, the vocals are typical, vaguely southern raspy blues vocals, and the atmosphere is nothing special for blues. I swear, there are a million blues albums just like this. The only things that stand out about it are some lyrics that would not fly today, and the terrible song Good Potatoes, which may be the hokiest song I've ever heard on a blues album. Everything else ranges from decent to boring. 5 out of 10. I knew you wouldn't be a fan, Bolt. Are the blues not energetic enough for you? This album certainly isn't. Fair enough. Anyway, this album is great. I love those raspy blues-style vocals combined with the dark, at times depressing lyrics. It conveys so much raw passion, especially when combined with the equally raw production. It's like punk or emo music for the silent generation. I agree that Good Potatoes is a terrible song, but everything else ranges from good to excellent. 8 out of 10. Wow. That was unexpected. I thought you and Bolt would both give this a 5. Like I said before, Draven, I'm full of surprises. That you are. Anyway, this album is pretty good. Sure, some of the instrumentation is a bit generic and some of the lyrics would not fly today. However, I appreciate his willingness to tackle the Vietnam War on Uncle Sam blues, the death of a family member on Dying Mother blues, and alcoholism on Wine Drinking Woman. It's a lonely, gloomy album that sometimes gets ruined by moments of humor that don't work. Especially on Good Potatoes, that song is horrible. It's not a perfect album, and even in blues I've heard better, but it's good for what it is, and it's always a pleasure to hear some raspy blues-style vocals. 7 out of 10. I'll go next so we don't end this on an extremely negative note. I'm not a fan of blues. To me, it just sounds like a mix of country and folk, minus the beauty and mature songwriting that makes me enjoy those genres. Sure, there are moments of introspection on this album that I appreciated, and the guitar playing is admittedly pretty good. However, there are also a lot of terrible lyrics that would not work today, and I cannot stand the bluesy vocal style. I'm sorry, but it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. 4 out of 10. Now, Houdini, I have a feeling you're gonna give it at least a 5? You would be correct, Skyler. My opinions are pretty similar to Draven's. It's got a nice bluesy atmosphere with some delightfully dark moments. However, a lot of the humor does not work for me even a bit. Good Potatoes, Honeymaker Blues, and Car Machine Blues don't work for me for this exact reason. Uncle Sam Blues is a perfect song, though. As for the album, it gets a 7 out of 10. Okay, I just finished adding up all our scores, and this album gets a combined score of 39 out of 60. Normally I'd say where it ranks within our first week of reviewed albums, but since this is the end of week 1, I'll instead give a ranking of all 6 albums we've reviewed for this series, plus an extra we reviewed for another series. So we have a total of 7 albums. 6th and 7th place are tied, with Forrest's pick, Hardworking Man Blues by Memphis Willie B, and our extra, Auk, Ancient Music of the Korean Royal Court by the National Classical Music Institute of Orchestra of Korea, each getting 39 points. In 5th place, we have Houdini's pick, Raised by Swerve Driver, with 42 points. Fourth and third place are also a tie, with Blaze's pick, A Sing Song and a Scrap by Chumbawamba, and Bolt's pick, The Fat of the Land by The Prodigy, each getting 48 points. In second place, we have Draven's pick, Funhouse by the Stooges, with 50 points. And finally, in first place, we have my pick, Huascaran by Fermata, with 54 points. Which means I get to pick first next week. And then Draven, and then Bolt and Blaze in some order depending on a coin toss. Then Houdini, and finally Forrest. Yes, Forrest seems to be going last for these first 2 weeks. Anyway, 39 out of 60 is our threshold for a good album, and no album scored below that threshold. Also, just for fun, I calculated how many points this week got overall. 320 out of 420, which, if you divide it, gives it a number that rounds up to an 8 out of 10. This was a great week overall. Yeah, it was. Let's see if next week can live up to it. Anyway, let's throw it back to Morgan, shall we? And that's my video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I'm Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer, and I'm out.